We're running everywhere.
Cool.
And we can hear everyone, right?
I can hear everyone.
Yes, I mean, you can hear us anyways. Okay.
Did you get that? I'm so confused.
Also, ich verstehe nur Bahnhof.
You only understand train station? It's all Greek to me.
Understanding Train Station. Living Between Cultures with Josh and Phelan.
Welcome back
Hey,
to
guys.
another episode of Understanding Train Station. I'm Feli. I'm a German living in the US.
And I'm Josh. I'm an American who is currently living in the US but has spent a lot of time in Germany, kind of back and forth. So I'm qualified, I think, to be a part of this podcast as well.
Absolutely, you absolutely are. And today we're not alone. We have our second guest on the podcast. So we're
Yes.
very, very happy that you're here. For everyone who's watching on YouTube too, you can see her. And it's our friend Sheffi. Welcome.
Welcome, Sheffi.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me.
So I think I'm really excited about this episode because we are now officially expanding beyond just Germany and the US.
Yes,
So
finally.
far, our topics have been pretty specific between culture differences and language differences between the US and Germany.
Yes.
But our goal from the beginning has always been to expand that conversation into other cultures as well. So we had our first episode, or our first guest, who was Niklas from Germany, but now we have our second guest, Sheffi.
and-
Do you want to tell us where you're from, Sheffi?
Well, I'm gonna give a little
Go
introduction
ahead.
about her. So Sheffi is a friend of ours. I've known you since 2 years ago, 2018. You've probably met her shortly after that through me. And you are from India, New Delhi. And you came here in 2016, actually almost, I think, on the exact same day that I came here, right? Which
I
day
didn't
did you
realize
come
that.
here?
13th August.
Same.
yeah.
So we both arrived in Cincinnati
crazy.
on August 13th, 2016.
Yep.
Was it your very first time into the US?
Yes, it was my very first time coming to the US.
So it wasn't my first time. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but it wasn't my first time coming to the US, but still like the time when we like moved here, I guess, which is pretty crazy.
And I'm not sure if you already mentioned this. I don't think so. But you guys were actually roommates.
Yeah, we were roommates. So that's how we met. It was pretty random. Like, I pretty much got this house, like a college house with 5 bedrooms. And I basically found this while I was still in Germany. So I was looking for roommates who could rent this house together with me, because obviously I can't just rent a house by myself with 5 bedrooms. And I wasn't going to sign the lease by myself. Like, I was looking for people to sign it with me. And so we connected via Facebook, like a Facebook housing group or something like that.
Yes, that's how we met each other. Was I was looking for housing late in the year, in July, and I came across her post on Facebook. And I was like, this looks like a pretty cool house. So I came here to tour, and it was definitely, still being cleaned and built at that time.
Yeah, at
So-
least like you looked at it. I wasn't even here. Like you looked at it for me, I think.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, because I think you were in Germany.
I was
at
in
that
Germany
time.
still.
Yeah. Honestly, like when I met her for the first time, when she came from Germany, I couldn't believe she was German. I was like,
Your English is extremely good.
Exactly, and like very like
American.
Americanized, and I was
Thank you.
like, oh well, but are you from Germany? Like from Germany, and
Yeah, that Germany. Okay, so that's the story of how we met. I guess I already said that you're from India, and I already said that you came to Cincinnati. So, like, obviously, we're all in Cincinnati, Ohio right now. You live in Cincinnati. So tell us a little bit about why did you come here? What's your story,
Yeah.
I guess, the short version.
Yeah.
Because we're going to dive a little bit more into it later on.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I was living in New Delhi, India with my family. I had lived in Kathmandu, Nepal for about 10 years, and then another 9 years in India. And I was always a person who admired every culture and always wanted to learn more about other countries. And there was always a fascination with studying abroad. And not gonna lie, Germany was my first choice. Germany was where I wanted to
good
go
fit on this
study
podcast.
because I already...
Why was that?
Because my uncle is already there. My uncle
right.
lives in Germany. He's a doctor there, and he's lived there for over 25 years now. So my dad wanted me to go to a country where I could be around family. And I was also a pre-med student, so he thought if I want to do medicine, it must be best to go to Germany and do it because Germany is good in medicine. And plus my uncle was a doctor there, so everything was perfect. But then I had to learn German for it. And I decided to not do that because I was like, I'm not going to learn another language. So I just decided to apply to the countries that have English as their main language. And America was my first choice, USA was my first choice. and I applied to the universities here. Hadn't heard about Cincinnati or Ohio. Nobody knows Ohio outside USA. That's just a fact. And I just applied and got into UC, and here I am. 4 years
and UC
later.
is University of Cincinnati.
UC stands for University of Cincinnati.
That's crazy. And so, I mean, obviously in India, people speak English very well. So that wasn't a challenge for you at all, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't a challenge because I definitely grew up speaking English, and my dad talks to me in English, and my mom speaks to me in Hindi. So it's kind of a balance where I like get to learn like both language simultaneously. And yeah, a lot of people were surprised here in the US because they were like, "So when did you start learning English?" Like, literally first language.
I think that's one thing that a lot of Americans don't realize is I think there are more English speakers in India than there are in the US. And we just don't think of that. We just think of native English being spoken in the US and Great Britain and Australia and Canada. And other than that, maybe South Africa.
Yeah, it's always crazy to me because like Germans are very good with English. Like most of us know some basic English, but we don't speak it to each other. Whereas like in India, it's actually a language that people do use in their everyday life.
Yeah, and I think they use it as kind of a lingua franca, meaning that it's the language that people use. If you don't speak each other's native languages, then oftentimes you'll switch to English or Hindi,
but even
right?
if you do, right? Even with like another person who speaks Hindi, you kind of speak both. Right?
Yeah,
English?
English. We call it English. It's basically like Hindi and English combined together. That's because like our Hindi vocabularies are not that strong.
Okay.
And there's some words we don't know what it like means in Hindi, like you know how to say it in Hindi.
Yeah.
So we just like say it in English, and like we'll have like a mixture of both the languages while speaking. But like another big thing is like obviously there's so many languages in India that not every person would speak Hindi. So you know, for somebody like who's from a more southern area, they have a different language than somebody who's from north. So English is like the uniting language in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I actually have a question. I think I've asked you this before, but I don't actually remember. So why do you speak English with your dad? Doesn't he speak Hindi?
My dad does speak Hindi. Yes, he does. He just wanted me to always have a good command over the language. Okay. So he always like talked to me in English so that like I never make like, you know, I don't have difficulties speaking English. Because even though like English is very like prominent in India, not everybody like speaks it on a very fluent or like very correct manner. Like, you know what I mean? Okay. So he just wanted me to like, I think, have a good grasp on the language.
And it makes sense. And I have to say, like, when you speak English, I can tell you're from India, but you don't have like a super strong, heavy Indian accent. Like I feel like most people would, not like what's his name from? Is it The Big Bang
Raj?
Theory? Yeah.
I get that so many times.
Yeah,
I get that so
I'm
many
sure.
times.
Do you guys speak English at school usually?
Yes, so our main communication mode is English in school because like all our studies are in English. So it's actually a fun fact, but you're supposed to study English as a subject in India from nursery all the way to like your 12th grade till you graduate high school, but Hindi is not compulsory. Like, so in your high school, only up till your sophomore year of high school, like second year of high school, you need to like have another language. But for the last 2 years, English is the only language like you need to have. Like you don't even need to have another language.
Which, I mean, that's an interesting... That's just interesting, you know? Like,
yeah, can we stick with languages for a second?
Yeah.
I know we didn't like plan to speak about languages for a whole lot, but do Indians typically learn a third language too?
Yes, we do.
I was going to ask if you speak any other Indian languages.
Not any other Indian languages, because like I mean I understand a couple Indian languages being from the state and stuff. So like my family lives in the state of Haryana, which is like right next to Delhi, and Haryanvi is like a local language, and I understand it. I cannot speak it. Most of my friends are Punjabi, so they speak Punjabi. So I understand what they're saying. We listen to Punjabi music, so we understand it that way.
Yeah.
But I cannot really speak any language like that. But these languages are, depending on the state you go to school in, that state decides like whether they want to teach the kids the state language or not. Where if it comes to third language, like the way my school was, we had a third language that we could choose from: French, German, or Spanish.
Okay.
And we were taught that for 3 years.
What did you
pick? I picked French.
Okay.
And
I don't even think we ever talked about that, because I know some French too.
Because I don't know how to speak it anymore.
But that's interesting. That, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense since a lot of world economics has to do with Western countries as well. But the fact that like a third language or a third Indian language isn't necessarily offered, you know?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not offered. Like Sanskrit is,
Okay.
but Sanskrit is not not spoken.
Yeah.
It's more of like manuscripts and like
But I would
the
think like they
religion
would
stuff.
offer like Telugu or Tamil or something, since those are such big in southern Indian languages too.
Maybe they would offer it in southern India. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure, but like in northern India,
Yeah.
they would not.
Is it because there's like a rivalry?
No, it's because like there's like less population of people who want to learn Tamil or Telugu. Like people definitely want to learn languages which are more global, you know. So that's why we had to pick from that, and then that was in middle school. So like 6th through 8th grade, you learn a third language, and then when you come to 9th and 10th grade is when you have to pick between learning Hindi or learning one of those languages.
Okay.
So most of the people stick to Hindi because they obviously know Hindi better than, you know, like a third language.
Yeah.
So then it comes down to 2 languages again.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. It's a very different
And here we are in
language
the
system.
U.S. barely being able to speak a second language.
True. Like
Pablo
it's such a
Espanol.
yeah. People are so impressed with you if you speak a second language
Yeah.
fairly well.
But yeah,
So-
one thing that kind of sticking in that vein of language and English. So obviously you probably had a decent amount of exposure to American culture. So I guess where my brain is going is, was it weird to get used to the American accent when you moved to the U.S.? And what did you know about U.S. culture before coming to the U.S.?
Yeah. I think definitely the accent was a little bit of a change because the only way I was hearing American accent was through American movies. Netflix wasn't definitely a big thing when I was in high school. Like Netflix still hadn't, you know, come to India that way. So it wasn't like we were watching American shows the way we are right now. Game of Thrones was probably the only show I watched that was American.
But the thing is, they don't even speak with American accents. in Game of
Yeah, so
Thrones.
they don't even speak with that accent, you know. So only movies were the only way. So it's definitely very different from like movies because I always had subtitles on in my movies.
Okay.
So I read the subtitles, so I never really paid a lot of attention to the accent. But speaking to people in person is a lot more different. And here, like I used to like get confused a lot.
Okay.
So like I you know I sort of try to like lip read and like I try to like understand like what people are saying because like some words I used to miss them like a lot and I had to
Yeah.
like ask people to repeat what they're saying at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
Makes
and
sense.
now
I mean, obviously it was the same for me. Yeah.
exactly and like now it's like much more comfortable but I still get issues like on phone because
Oh, yeah.
like I can understand what the other person's saying but they have difficulties understanding what I am saying.
Which is crazy because, as we said, your accent isn't super strong.
Yeah, they definitely have some issues like with some words and stuff, especially like if I have to like spell something out. That's when like the most difficult thing is because like they just like get confused with the letters like T and D or
Yeah.
B and V, you know, like
Yeah.
all of those letters. So
Right. But so about like the pop culture stuff and movies and everything, was it just you who didn't consume a bunch of American movies or is it just the country itself? Like, would you say that if there's English-speaking content, it's more British or is it both?
It's both.
Okay.
It's like whatever's popular in the world. You know
Okay.
what I mean? Like people like always talk about like what kind of music you hear and like what kind of like music you listen to or what kind of movies you watch. But it's always been like whatever's like just you know like whatever the entire world is watching.
Okay,
So
so in Germany, I'd say like we are pretty big on American pop culture.
Yeah.
Rather than like British pop culture.
I feel like I had a mix of friends who did that. Like, so I had a group of friends who were so heavy into like the American pop culture. Like, all they used to listen to was American bands. All they used to, watch was American movies. They're the cool kids of the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then there were other half which like did not really care. So
And that was you?
I was in the middle. I used to. I mostly I was like, okay, I don't care. And then at times I used to just like follow some of the stuff going on because I never really planned to come here. Like,
Yeah.
it just happened. So.
Right.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I guess like we already asked you why you wanted to go to Germany first. Did we get to the point where you then explained why you came to America?
Because of the language.
After?
Yeah.
Just because of the
Just
language. That was
yeah.
the only reason.
Yeah, I don't think I could get myself to learn German.
Yeah,
Oh, I bet
okay.
you
Yeah.
And so, like, did the money play a role at all with like universities? Because obviously, like, German universities are pretty much free, and in
Yeah.
the US, it can be really expensive.
Yeah, it was definitely a factor because Germany, obviously, education is free, so and it's very convenient. But at the same time, I feel like I got a good scholarship here at UC, so that really helped a lot. And then I'd heard from like other students who were studying here that like once you are here, there's so many ways to like you can work on campus and like get internships, co-ops and stuff, and earn money like that. And honestly, like a U.S. education obviously holds some value, so it'll be worth it in the end. So all played out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And Josh already asked about like the language difficulties. I'm curious to hear what kind of American stereotypes you had
Yeah.
before you came here, and then like how, like which of them turned out to be very true and which of them were totally wrong.
I feel like the biggest like American, like not stereotype, but like when you talk about America in countries like
yeah,
that,
I guess like your image of America.
the image of like how American college life is going to be is literally like American Pie. Like, you know, people watch American Pie and they're like, this is how colleges are in America,
Yeah.
which I don't think is true. It's a little bit of an exaggeration. It's a little bit like that, you know, it gets crazy sometimes, but it's definitely not like that at all. And I think that's what movies do. They just exaggerate. We'd also like learned a lot about like Americans being like, you know, a little bit more into themselves, not very accepting of other people and everything, which I don't think was true, because I made the best friends and, you know, I met the amazing people in the last 4 years here. So that was definitely not true. Things that were true was that Americans don't think that there like a world exists outside the U.S., which I think is, you know, true to a very big extent. Because
It's not your fault, Josh.
not all of them, but like a lot of my friends are like definitely very well cultured and they like, you know, want to travel the world and stuff. But a lot of them haven't even gotten the chance to like even leave Ohio ever.
Yeah,
A lot of them don't even have a passport. Like a lot of them have like, you know, born and brought up in Cincinnati all their lives, and this is all they have been to. So that's definitely something that like they don't really like, you know, go out there and explore the world like the other countries do. They travel outside and they, you know, see other countries and cultures and places. So that was definitely something that was true. Yeah, that's all I can remember of stereotypes.
Those are good though.
Well, I actually have to say, like, I was super surprised to hear that so many people don't have a passport in the U.S. I knew that Americans didn't travel as much as like Europeans and especially Germans do, partly because of like what we talked about with Nicholas, like how many pay time off we have and stuff like that, and how obviously how close everything is, but so many Americans have never left the country.
And a lot of them haven't even left their state or their region.
Or like they've been to the neighbor state or something like that. But I was baffled by the passport thing, because that literally means you don't even intend to leave the country. You can't even leave the country.
Yeah, even if you want to, you
It's pretty
cannot.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's not normal in Germany for sure. And I don't know what it's like in India. I would assume it like depends on your social status probably.
Yeah, that's a big factor, of course.
Do the richer people travel a lot?
Yes, yeah, they do. They definitely travel a whole lot. They have been to so many countries. I still remember my roommate from sophomore year. She's Indian. She'd been to like over 30 or 40 countries or something like that. And she traveled a lot. And I know so many people in India like who are like traveling. Like it's like a goal to like travel the world as much as possible, which I think is pretty cool. You get to see the world so much, and you know, you get to explore so much. I also feel like a big factor is the fact that the location, because like India is like, you know, Southeast Asia, Europe is very close, Australia is very close, everything is like very in close proximity. For US, it's like everything is far. You have to travel far to like even get somewhere. So like the closest is Europe, and that is also like 8-9 hours. So you know, I think the maximum people can go is like Canada, Mexico easily. But
and even then, I mean, it costs a decent amount of money. I mean, if compared to traveling, I mean, travel to Europe is extremely expensive for Americans, and if you look at it, it's more expensive if you book a flight from the U.S. to Europe than if you do from Europe to the U.S. So there's lots of factors that keep Americans where they are, but no, I mean, that's a huge difference compared to a lot of the world, that a lot of people haven't traveled and don't have passports.
Right. My friends, like, they always like talk about, oh my god, one day I want to see Australia and New Zealand, as if like it's a far-fetched dream. You know what I mean? Like Australia and New Zealand for us is like so close. It's not even that far. But from here, like I was talking to someone the other day, the world's longest flight is from New York to Singapore. That's the world's longest flight. And I'm like,
yeah, that's
well, I think too, I mean, just it's my opinion, but I think since there aren't a lot of people who travel, you're used to just thinking of travel and movies and all of this stuff. It's not something that's attainable. So I think since people don't have in their mind that this is something that people do, or that this is an attainable idea, that it is less of a priority for them. So I think if people were to prioritize travel and it was something that was a little bit more normal, then we would see more Americans travel. But it's just not something that Americans tend to do.
Yeah, and it's very different in Germany. I think we talked about it before, but like for Germans, it's pretty normal to go on vacation at least once a year. Most of them like twice or 3 times a year. And going on vacation usually actually means leaving the country and
Yeah.
traveling somewhere new.
That's why I think the lockdown in Germany was a big deal for a lot of people
Yeah,
because
oh
they had
my
to spend
God.
a whole summer just in Germany.
Yeah, poor them, right? But I mean, like, it really is a big change for many
Oh,
Germans.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it does sound a little bit ridiculous, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I also think like people view traveling as very expensive deal here. Like they think that traveling means spending thousands of dollars, which I don't think is the case. Because like once you like tell them that there are ways to get cheap flights, there are
Yeah.
ways to like book cheap Airbnbs. You don't always have to spend so much money while traveling. Then it's like a big deal because like I remember when I went with Jasmine and Olivia, like our roommates before to India, and we booked our round trip flights for about $600,
Yeah.
which was very cheap.
Yeah, that's
Very
really
cheap.
cheap. to
And they
go
were
in
really
here.
surprised. They were like, oh wow, only $600, because like that's just very cheap flights. And like there are ways you can obviously get, you know, travel hacks and stuff like that.
Definitely, but if you don't have an example in a person or people around you to learn from, I think that's what I was kind of trying to get at, is it's just not something that people know how to do or don't realize is something that's attainable. So I think that was true with me, is once I had people who did travel more in my life and I could learn from them and their experiences, it opens up a whole new world that is possible then.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. You definitely need people like that in your life who can inspire traveling.
So kind of moving on past language and past just general travel, what would you say is like were some of the biggest culture shocks that you experienced when you first got to the US?
Yeah, and I explicitly want to like know what were some culture shocks in the very beginning
Yeah.
and then like some later on, because like I know what it's like. I feel like there's some things that you experience after just like a year or two suddenly that weren't really shocks in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. So in the beginning, I feel like some of the biggest culture shocks were definitely like the way things work around here. Like, you know, like how people are like there's so many things honestly, but like to begin with, like I think like let's start with like food. Like a lot of people here like just eat out a lot. They eat out, like, you know, going to a restaurant like is like a normal thing.
Yeah.
Like just like, hey, what do you want to have for lunch? And like we are picking up canes. Like that's very normal, which I don't think is like something which we do back home.
Yeah.
Like eating out was like more of like like an activity that you do like, you know, a couple times a week or maybe once a week, and it was a big deal like going out to the restaurant with the family, you know, dining in and stuff. I feel like that's like more casual here. People just like pick up and like eat out all the time. And then when it comes to like even with alcohol, like I remember I was at Mr. Sushi, and it
Which
was
is a restaurant.
which is a restaurant, and I was there and I just asked for the waitress for a beer, and she said, "Can I see your ID?"
Yeah.
And I was shocked. I'm like, ID? What are you trying to ID me for?
What's the drinking age in India?
It depends. It's different from states to states. In my state, it's 25, but
Wow.
nobody really follows it, so
Yeah.
nobody really cares.
So do they don't really check your ID very often either?
They did not used to, but like they've become a little bit stricter lately, like a little bit, not like, you know, as crazy and strict as it is here. It's not actually very crazy and strict here. People use fake IDs here all the time too.
But
You have to-
it is pretty strict compared to like
Yeah.
Germany, and I'm assuming like they
Yeah.
do ask at least,
Yeah.
which is a difference.
And we have to
itself.
say that we all live near a university, so fake IDs are more
Right.
common. But that's something that's very common around.
Yeah, you
American
cannot like go to New
universities.
York and use a fake ID. You know what I mean? Like New York bars, like they would probably not allow
I don't
you.
know. I've
on
never
fake
tried it. I
ID.
came here when I
Neither
was
have I,
22.
but-
So.
Yeah, I think that's another difference for sure. And then I think other culture shocks were how much work I had to do on my own, because I was not used to doing things on my own. Like, you know, when it came to like washing dishes or like doing laundry, I didn't know how to work a washing machine. I was like, I put the clothes in, I hit the start button. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to put something. And my mom's like, the door's not going to open again. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, does it not open and I cannot put it in? And my mom's like, no. So that was something like I was not like ready for.
Do you feel like that's a general thing that most of your Indian friends here in the U.S. also experience? Like the
100%.
learning curve of doing things on your own?
And that
100%.
has a lot to do with like you have servants at home, right?
We have
Help.
we call them help. They're like you know, like helpers. We have like that we they're like doing all these like chores for us. So we're not really like so used to like doing chores on our own.
Yeah.
Like my parents tried to make me more independent when it came to like doing chores, and like I definitely tried to do some things on my own. Like you know, unlike some kids I know who are absolutely spoiled. Like some of my friends too. So it didn't take me a long time to like get used to like doing things on my own. Like
I just know for Americans, sorry to interrupt you. I just was going to say for Americans, like that's such a foreign concept of having help in your home.
Yeah.
But
For Germans too.
yeah, but I was
Yeah.
going to say for like my friends in South America and for my time there, like that's something that's more common there. Once your family has a certain amount of money, it's very common to have someone in the home who helps with cooking and cleaning and all of that. But
Yeah.
such a foreign concept for us.
Absolutely. I feel like I get that reaction a lot from people, and they think like I'm like
Like a princess.
yeah, or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not how it works. It's just
Yeah.
that help over here is very expensive to hire.
Exactly.
It's not that expensive because of like the population. The labor is very cheap, so you can hire people to do work for you for very cheap. So you rather do that and put your time somewhere else than like put your time doing chores that can be done by someone else for like lesser money.
Yeah.
So definitely that's like one of the biggest shocks I had was like doing things on my own. And then there's definitely like things like small things like traffic lights. Like I was like I used to jaywalk all the time in India. Like I never like cared about like the lights turning green and red and whatever. And here it's like, okay, you only need to walk when there's a walk sign. So which I think I got a little bit of
You
a
wouldn't do well in
change.
Germany then.
That's funny because like to me I would say people jaywalk all the time here.
Yeah, compared to Germany.
But I guess like maybe also around campus is like a little bit different because there's actually a lot of traffic. So sometimes you can't jaywalk because there's so many cars coming.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But that's funny. I wouldn't even say that Americans like pay attention to the
traffic
to the
rules.
traffic light. At
Well,
least not
more
as
than
a
us.
pedestrian. I mean,
More
for,
than us.
for cars, of course, like cars
Yeah.
do, but pedestrians, meh,
I
sometimes.
guess the U.S. just kind of falls between India and Germany there.
Yeah,
I guess.
I guess
Yeah.
it goes Germany, you never
Yeah.
cross a red light, and then like America, you can do it most of the time, and then India,
And then
I guess.
India says, "What's a light?"
For real, we definitely are very little bit of a rash driving and stuff because everybody's like in a hurry to get everywhere. So it's definitely fun though, because like you see people like always like breaking rules and stuff, but like nobody cares, and then you become this amazing driver because you know how to dodge everything on the road.
You're like a race car driver.
you feel like
Yeah,
you're-
you like in GTA or something.
You probably feel like you're in a little village then when you're here in Cincinnati compared to Delhi, right? I mean, Delhi's such a huge city that it must seem so calm here.
It
Or-
is. It's definitely a very, very big change. Because like when I came here, I remember I walked out of the airport and I was just like the drive from the airport to UC's campus was so sad for me because
Where are
like
all the
it was
people?
also like definitely like a long flight that I'd taken and was tired, but at the same time I didn't see any people or any cars, and I was just shocked, and I was like, where are the people at? Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like that we are asked to come to the campus a week before the domestic students arrive. So it's definitely like even the campus is empty at that point because it's the end of summer. And there was nobody around campus too. So when he dropped me there, I was just like looking around and I couldn't see people.
What did I get myself into?
Yeah, I was like, where are the people at? Because like Delhi is 21 million people. That's a lot of people. And then slowly, obviously, you get
Crazy.
used to it. And I
And
think
Cincinnati has like 300,000, 400,000.
The city itself,
300,000,
yeah.
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 The actual incorporated city of
Yeah.
Cincinnati has about 330,000
yeah.
last I checked.
So that's like such a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it was definitely something which was a big change. And then, but like I got to live in cities like New York here, and those are much more similar to
Right.
what Delhi is. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, was that all the culture shocks?
Those
I'm
seem to be
trying
the
to
ones that
think.
were earlier on. Did you have any that like maybe in the last year and a half that you've kind of realized like, oh, wait, I didn't realize that until just now?
I feel like there's so many things, and I just cannot.
Well, I know that
point
we
them
always
out.
talk about like how Americans are like unreliable friends or like
Oh my God.
dishonest and stuff like that and not loyal.
Oh, man.
Which I'm not trying to like bash Americans in general. I
Yeah.
just know that this is a common thing that Sheffi and I have talked about so many
Yeah,
times
yeah.
because we're both not used to this from our home culture.
Yeah.
And it's something that keeps disappointing us when Americans keep doing that.
Yeah,
Obviously not everyone does it.
yeah. I think like I've had my share of like good and bad friends here, and that's definitely a big difference. Like what, as you said, was people here are like not as like reliable or like as like trustworthy. Not trustworthy. Trustworthy is the wrong word. Like they're more like about themselves first, and then everybody else, which I think is a good thing for. If you look at it like individually, that you need to always think of yourself first. But like when it comes to like having like people skill or having like friendships or like relationships, that's when they fail because like they always think of themselves and they like never like I'm the one who has to like text people and catch up and like or do things like that. So I like there's just something like I'm like maybe as a person also I think
Yeah.
that's something I get more of like my personality, that I'm just more of like a person who takes care of other people first, and I like to like give my best to the other person, and I never just receive that same response. So it's definitely much more prominent here. I cannot tell you how it is a lot in India, because like obviously like I tell my friends also this, like in India when we were in high school or when we were middle school, we used to be with those kids throughout classes all day long. So it was a much more different relationship or like friendship, because you're kids and you're just like very naive and you're just very like, what do you say, pure. And then you come to college and like especially in a different country with different culture, different people, you don't know what to expect from people. Like you don't know like if this is too much or if this is too less, like what am I supposed to do? And like I definitely learned that over years. Like I'm still learning, but like definitely learned that over years. Like in the beginning I used to be like, okay, like if the person's like said hi to me, that means they're such good friends with me. Now I'm gonna get invited to their parties and stuff, and unfortunately it doesn't work like that. No, it doesn't work like that. Like you need to be like in their close circle, and it's so difficult to get into people's close circle here, especially in a state school like Cincinnati, because people come from high schools around here and they already have a group of friends, they already know people from before, so they stick to those people, so they don't want to let somebody new in. And well,
that's what I was gonna say, is I think that the US, we definitely, what you were saying, we're definitely more of an individualistic culture in general, but I wonder if it has something to do with the stage of life that we're in, and also like when you start at a university, a lot of Americans themselves are also pretty unsure of themselves, and they're in a new environment, not with all of their friends like you were saying that they grew up with in school, and those are relationships that just kind of organically arise, but then to come to a university and not know people and having to figure all of that out, I think there are a lot of Americans who have similar experiences as you do as far as trying to find a new friend group, but then to add on top of that you're in a foreign culture, and the whole thing of if someone says hi to you, then that means that they want to be your friend. Like Americans know, like you just say hi to people. Like in my parents' neighborhood, we wave at everyone who passes in the car, even though we have no clue who they are. So I can't imagine like already being in that stage of life where just trying to figure things out and being in a completely different area that a lot of Americans also experience, but then also throwing the foreign culture and different aspects of how to interact with people on top. So that I can imagine that must have been a bit of a pretty difficult transition at first.
No, for sure. Because like here, like even like now, like people I know of, like, who I've hung out with or who I've like spend some time with, if I'm like run into them on the street, they're like, oh hey, what's up, Sheffi, how are you? I'm good, how are you? And then we just like keep walking. And I don't think that's like how, like at least it was in India, like if you run into a friend, you stop and you talk to them for like at least a couple minutes, just catch up and like see like what's going on, and then you go from there. Like you just like don't say like, hey, what's up, how are you? Like, you know what I mean? Like I like to try to make conversation. And I think that was a big difference. But like as again, like as you said, I feel like it's also like has to do with the fact that we're in college.
But I have to jump in here. I mean, I feel like I've said this so much in my videos also before, and probably on this podcast too, but it's definitely this difference between, like, I can relate to everything Sheffi says, and it's like this individualism versus like college.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, that was phrased poorly. Individual culture versus like a more collective culture, which like I would say India definitely has, Germany definitely has a little bit more than the US. And I went to college in Germany, and then I also went to college in the US, so I can compare it directly. And even in college, Germans are like, usually they make friends in the first semester and they stick with those friends. And I feel like here people go through so many different friend circles over the years. Like I don't even want to, like, you've probably switched friends so many times, Sheffi, and like so have I. And I don't mean like switch, but like people move away and then you lose, don't stay in touch, or like people change. And I've, even in my 4 years here, I've had so many different like friend circles that I would hang out with on a like weekly basis, whereas like in Germany my friend circle would usually stay the same for years.
I think in the US in general it tends to be more friendships of convenience, and oftentimes the level of the friendship stays relatively superficial. I mean, you still have a good time with people and you get along and you really enjoy spending time with one another, but I don't think there's necessarily as much depth to those friendships as in comparison with my friendships with people from other countries that are less individualistic. So I definitely see what you're saying, and I totally agree.
So you have the same experience too?
Yeah. My German friendships tend to be deeper, and we stay in contact more, even though I'm living in the US and they're in Germany. But with my friends that I have from the US that have moved away from Cincinnati, or for whatever reason I don't see as much as often, we don't stay in contact as much, if at all.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
No, I definitely agree because like I think people here are like just like more as like Felice said, I think in the last 4 years I've just like met so many people, and I cannot say any 2 semesters were the same. Like the people I hung out with every semester was different because like people just do not like to like stay in touch as much, or like just like they just move on with their lives and stuff. And especially as you said, like once they're out of Cincy, then it's a huge effort trying to catch up or like be in contact, because that's not how it works. And I have people from back home who I haven't even seen in years, but we are still in touch because they'll always message me like congratulate me on things. Always make sure they wish me happy birthday and stuff like that. So like very small things, so that'll keep them in touch with me. Whereas like over here, like if somebody moves away, I think they like just stop, like they don't have you in their mind anymore.
Right.
And I mean, I just want to jump in here as the American. Of course, you're going to find, I would say in general that tends to be true, especially in our age group. But like my parents have some really deep friendships, and like you're gonna find people that you connect with.
Impossible.
It's not impossible. These are obviously generalizations, so I just wanted to throw that in there, that deep relationships with Americans is 100% possible. I'm an American and I have deep friendships.
Right.
So I just wanted to throw that into the discussion as well, that these
true.
are just generalizations and our perspectives. So that's not to say that Americans can't and don't have deep friendships as well.
I don't think that's true too, because like I definitely have made some friends here who I think are going to stick with me for the rest of my life. Like I call them my family, like because and like there are definitely Americans like that out there, but it's just that most of the people, in the culture in general. In culture in general, like it's okay, like it's an acceptable thing basically. Like it's not something that's frowned upon. Like like I would like feel bad if a friend I had in high school back home who like did not like catch up or like did not check up on me, but here I don't feel bad about that because I know that's what like it's
more acceptable.
like it's like acceptable, and it's just like something that's okay. So,
right. I guess let's move on a little bit. Do you want to ask the next question, Josh? Or
Go for it.
Okay, so I guess my next question is, how would you say your experience as an Indian in the US is different to my experience as like a European or German in the US? And I'm going to just like throw like a few like words in there. I'm kind of thinking about like the Indian community that is here, maybe even like things like racism or something like that.
Okay.
What's like your experience?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like definitely for somebody who's like a European, you're much more used to the Western culture than I am as somebody from the East. And the culture difference is definitely a big thing. And secondly, like our community here, like I feel like we have a very strong community in reference to the Indian community. Like I don't know like how, like I feel like you also have like great German people around you.
Yeah, but there's definitely not as many
Germans exactly.
As Indians,
yeah, for sure. There are definitely a lot of Indians. Like I think the University of Cincinnati's international population is majority Indians. Yeah. And there's a lot of Indian people here, and I feel like the Indian friends that you make here are definitely someone like you can like be around and like feel home, like like feel like home, because like our festival Diwali is coming up this Saturday and is one of our biggest festivals of the year. So like in these times you miss being home the most. So like having a community like that, who we can celebrate with or like who can be around definitely feels a little better, and you like stops you from being homesick. And I feel like those friends were the first friends I made in the US were like people from the Indian community, because we were all equally lost. So, when you put together people who are all equally lost,
they lost together. I like that phrase.
Yeah, we're just like all together, and then we are figuring out things together. Like we're, going through things together. We are getting advice from people who are, in their senior year or something, who have been through these things and who can help us out. Because I cannot ask like an American senior or like somebody who's from here to give me advice on like, oh, how do I like apply for do my taxes as an international. They would not be able to tell me that. So doing those things definitely. And then I feel like what else is very different for Indian as compared to a German.
Do you think like you experience racism at all?
I did not personally. Okay. I feel like...
Well, that's good.
Yes, glad to hear that.
Yeah, I personally did not. I would like say that, like, people ask me that a lot. They're like, did you experience something? I was like, not really. I definitely get some looks at the airport and, get checked twice at times, because a lot of people tell me, oh, you look like a Middle Eastern. So, I don't know, very controversial.
For those of you listening, like, maybe go check out the YouTube recording, because Sheffi really doesn't look like your typical Indian. She does look like, like a Middle Eastern
Yeah.
person more. Like you're a little like your skin is kind of fair.
Yeah, so
And
I
you're
think
tall, pretty
Yeah, you're tall, exactly.
Yeah, so a lot of Middle Eastern people ask me if I'm from Middle East.
Yeah.
So I guess yeah, but like a lot of I think that is one reason. Like I feel like I definitely have like been checked at airports and stuff a lot. But except that, like in person or like through people and stuff, definitely not. It's definitely a little bit. What do I say? Like as a German or Indian, like the difference with you, if you ask me, is I feel like people here have a very strong stereotype against India, and they like whenever you say you're from India, they kind of like view you in a certain light. They like view you like they literally like look at you like as if like you're expected to do certain things, and I feel like there's more fascination around the fact that if you're German or like if you're from France or someone, because they're like, oh shit, you're from Germany, like and like they want to learn more. But I feel like they've seen so many Indians at this point, they're like not really fascinated by the fact that oh, you're Indian, like
Yeah.
it's just like a common thing for them.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
especially here in Cincinnati, and I think in a lot of the U.S. there's a lot of Indian immigrants. I mean, I
Right.
grew up playing tennis with a lot of them, and the area where I grew up was very Indian heavy. So I think that's an interesting observation. Is I don't want to say you're a dime a dozen because that's definitely not true, but just the sense that there are definitely a lot more Indians than there are first generation European immigrants in the U.S. that we come across. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I see
And
what
then,
you're
like,
saying.
of course, until I tell someone, people usually just assume that I'm American because I'm just a white person.
Right.
I could be an American
Right.
from what I look like, and
Right.
obviously so could you.
Right.
But especially since you don't even look like a stereotypical Indian person, so maybe it's even just a little bit different for you than for like some other Indian people. But like obviously you don't look like the typical white American at first sight.
Yeah, no, they definitely. There's so many like things like people don't know about, and they like always assume about to you, and they're like, oh, so like, do you speak Hindu? I mean, I don't speak Hindu.
Yeah.
Hindu's my religion, but like, and then I remember I was at Toppers and I was trying to order a pepperoni pizza, and he was like, there's pepperoni on it. I'm like, I know. And because he thought like I was
he thought you were vegetarian?
No, he
No,
thought I was a
Muslim.
Muslim.
Oh,
And
okay,
Muslims
yeah.
don't eat pork. So he thought I was a Muslim, and like, and like he tried to warn me, but like
Yeah.
I mean, I would know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like
It's like tricky because he was probably trying to be nice and help,
Right.
but
But it's
at the
also
same
kind of
time-
racist at the same time.
yeah,
It was a tricky situation.
I still remember my freshman year. I feel like there was some Indian event or something, so I was dressed in like some traditional clothes or whatever. And one of these like persons, like I was helping with his math classes or something, and he was asking me all these stupid questions, and he was like, oh, so like, do you guys like, like still ride on elephants back home and stuff? And I'm like, it's literally faster to walk, but okay. And then he would ask me like stupid questions, and he was like, oh, so like, are you like, already married back home or something? I'm like, nobody, no.
See, but I have to say from my perspective, it's nice to have such a low bar on the American knowledge of India, because if you just know a little bit, you get like major brownie points. I remember you had some friends over here when you were still living at this house, and there was a party, and we were standing out back, and I was talking to them. I just asked them where in India they were from and what languages they spoke, and they're like, oh, I speak 6 languages. And then he said, I speak Hindi and Urdu, and I was like, gotcha, those are the same. And he was like, oh dang, you got me. So the bar is set pretty low for American knowledge on India.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's more like it's more of coming from like the kind of people you meet.
Yeah.
Because like I'm pretty sure there's not another Indian who's like me, or like there's not another like they're not like two same people.
Right.
Like
Of course.
even like culturally, or like the experience they had growing up, or like the kind of exposures they had growing up, it's never the same for
It's
two
so
people.
diverse in India.
And it is exactly because of the diversity. Like you can never like tell what you know or what you don't know. So there's like so many like I don't know, like if you like meet someone from South India, they'll have a completely different experience growing up
Yeah.
as someone from North India. Even from like people from my city, like friends I grew up with, they
Yeah.
definitely had different experiences.
Yeah.
So it's like depends on who you meet here, I guess.
The elephant story totally reminded me of like, this hasn't happened in a long time, but I've definitely been asked before if Hitler is still alive. And it's like, it's that category of
Yeah.
questions where you're just like,
They're just so far out
seriously?
there.
Yeah, I'm like
That's your question about Germany?
Yeah.
Or like, I was asked if we have refrigerators in Germany, and I was just like, we're not a third world country.
yeah, and
And
honestly,
even a lot
like,
of third world countries have
Yeah.
refrigerators.
my fridge and back home is probably like nicer and bigger than any other fridge I've seen here.
Right.
Like it's crazy like how people like just
Yeah.
generalize things, and they think like they're not some things. Like there definitely some people I've met who are more sensitive towards it, and they're who are more not sensitive, like just like more careful of like how they ask questions,
Yeah.
because like there's a difference between like trying to learn something from someone and just imposing something.
Yeah.
Like some people just want to learn about your culture.
Yeah,
Some
and
people
there's
wanna-
nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. Like I didn't know a lot about like, you know, some country, and I want to learn about it. So definitely like you can always ask questions to clarify like how things work down there. But like it's just at the same time like just like don't like make impositions.
Yeah. So maybe kind of moving from that topic into one thing that we want to start to do with kind of our guests is kind of talk about your visa process, and how that all went. What did you have to do? What were the hoops you had to jump through to get to the United States? Because we definitely put a lot of hurdles in people's way in order to be able to enter the country.
Yeah, it's probably a lot harder for an Indian person than for a German person, I would assume.
So when it comes to student visa, it's actually pretty fair and simple, because like they want students here. You know what I mean? Like they are trying to we add to their economy. We add to the US economy, and there's no reason to not have students here. So student visa processes are not that difficult or complicated. It's a bunch of applications. You do an interview, you get accepted or rejected for the visa, you know, on the spot. And you just have to like show no intention of staying here after your graduation.
Yeah, which you have to do no matter where you're
Where
from.
you're
If you
from.
apply for a non-immigrant visa in the U.S., you can never imply that you have any intention of staying here long-term.
Exactly.
That's so
And like
interesting.
and then you just like you apply, and then you get done with the interview and stuff, and then it's good from there. So it's not bad, like not bad at all. I feel like when it comes to like being from Indian origin, the only thing different for us is like the diversity visa lottery, like the DV visa, and
Which is what I won for all the listeners
The
and
green card
viewers.
lottery.
The green card lottery, yeah.
Like Indians aren't even eligible to apply
like
for that.
because like it's that lottery is basically to promote diversity in the US, and like the countries they already have representation from, they do not really want to, you know, include in that. So a lot of countries are excluded from that. Like I think Pakistan is, China is. So that's one difference. And the second I think would be no, I don't think there's any other
Well,
difference.
what
with
about like
country.
being a tourist? Because you have to have a tourist visa to come to the U.S. as an Indian, right?
No,
You don't?
No, not me. I have a student visa.
No,
No,
I mean
in
like
general.
Like my
an
dad,
Indian-
like for,
an
yeah,
Indian
for suppose
person.
like yeah, for an Indian person, like yeah, if you so that's like your passport, like the passport you hold, how strong it is. Indian passport's not that strong. It like it allows you to I think go to only about like 65 to 70 countries without a visa. Whereas like I think world's strongest passport like Singapore or something allows you to 170 or something.
I know
So-
Germany's is right up there with them.
Yeah,
Germany's
like around
pretty
170
strong.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot of difference. So
Yeah, so Germans can enter the U.S. without a visa up until like 90 days.
yeah, so we have to get a visa for any purpose. So if to travel, if you want to come here, you need to get a tourist visa, and those are the ones that get rejected more.
Okay.
Because a lot of people depends on the intention you show and stuff like that, but you know they check your background and stuff, and then only issue your tourist visa, because tourist visas are 10 years. So like my dad
Okay.
and mom have one, and they're on a 10-year tourist visa. So they literally have a visa longer than mine.
Okay.
So it's just once you get that, then you can come in and go out of the country as you like. You can just I think the only limit is you can at one time you can stay only up to 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
that's what
they're.
I've
I
heard
used to
from-
have one of those too, actually, at some point. But I think like the reason why they're trying not to issue them to everyone is because a lot of people abuse it, right, and enter on a tourist visa, and then the authorities in the U.S. are scared that you're going to
You're right,
overstay and
yeah.
just
Yeah,
never gonna leave
overstay
again.
or
Yeah.
work while you're here.
Right.
I think I saw this somewhere. I don't know if it's true or not, but like the majority of illegal immigrants in the U.S. are actually the ones who came here legally, but their visa expired
they're
and they like
overstayers.
extend. Yeah, overstayers. They're the ones who are like the majority of the illegal immigrants. So. Yeah, definitely. They try to like, you know, be careful. Like if you have a strong background and they have no reason to doubt that you're just going to go and stay there. So that's how they do the tourist visa.
I'm curious because we both had the same student visa, obviously. Like you're still on it. I'm not on it anymore. But how long was your interview at the embassy or consulate?
Mine was actually fairly surprisingly very short as compared to my other friends, because one of my friends got like stuck up there for like 20 minutes
Okay.
during the interview.
Wow.
And
like
there's
at the counter.
At the counter,
Okay.
because there's like obviously a lot of like waiting before that. Like I had to be there 4 hours before the interview.
Oh
It
my
was crazy.
gosh.
But mine was very quick. Mine was literally like, so what university are you going to? What do you plan on studying? And what do you plan to do after? That's it.
Okay,
And
so it was very similar. than
very
mine.
short. Yeah,
Compared to
very
my
short.
experience with the German visa process to get my blue card, I mean, they didn't ask me any questions. I just handed them my documents and they said, here you go.
Yeah,
that was literally
I have Canadian visa, and that came in my mail.
But you didn't even have an interview for that?
No.
Wow.
I didn't even have to go for it, and I have a 10-year Canadian visa. So
Yeah. Well, the U.S. is definitely stricter, but I'm actually positively surprised that your process to get the student visa was
Yeah.
exactly the same as my process as
Yeah,
a German.
yeah.
Which that's how
I
it
feel
should
like
be.
it also, like, they definitely do grill a lot of people, depending on, like, how much confidence, or are you, like, looking nervous or something.
Yeah.
Definitely observe all of those things. And, like, obviously, if you have all the documents and stuff, like, they'll ask for the required documents, and if it's all good, then it's good.
Right.
I know one of my friends whose visa got rejected the first time,
Oh.
a student visa.
Oh, man.
And then he had to apply for the second time. And
Did
then
he still
got
make it in time?
Yeah. I think you can reapply after a month.
Okay.
And then he, like, applied again and got it,
That
and then
just
came for
sounds
his
like so
master's.
stressful.
It is. I can tell you it is.
Yeah, when I waited for my, this is a different story, of course, but when I waited for my interview for the green card, I was in there for like 6 or 7 hours without anything. Like, you can't take your phone
In
in,
the
there.
embassy.
In the embassy, in the consulate in Frankfurt in Germany.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
it's a process. You cannot take phones and stuff in there, and it was so crazy
Yeah,
because,
you
like,
can't do that with the German consulate either.
yeah, and, like, you just had to, like, a little leave it out. And then I still remember because I got my acceptance from UC back in December, and then I had my other college acceptances by March, and then I accepted it by April. But I still didn't tell anybody that I was, these are my college plans.
Yeah.
Because my dad was like, till the time you don't get your visa, you're not sharing it with anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you don't,
Wait
like,
till
you don't
have
want
it
to,
in
like,
your hand.
yeah, like, because you don't, like, want to, like, just advertise something and not even go through it.
Yeah.
And US visa, because he was scared, like, US visas are difficult to get. A lot of people get rejected. The girl right in front of me in the line got rejected.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, she was coming here to visit her grandma or something, from what
Aw.
I could overhear.
Oh,
But
gosh.
So what are your future plans after you graduate college? Because I know that the student visa allows you to do optional practical training afterwards, and then obviously there's like ways to work in the U.S. afterwards. Are you planning on using that?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to use my OPT, which is my extension to my student visa, to start off a job, and then definitely we'll see from there how it goes, because I have no idea, like, what I want to do, a couple of years from now.
And you have 3 years,
3
right?
years,
Because I
yeah.
only got 1 year
Oh,
because
wow.
I didn't do a STEM major.
Yeah, I'm a STEM major, so
You got
That
3
definitely
years.
has advantages all throughout the world too. With my German visa, it definitely, I shouldn't say German visa because Americans don't need visas to go into Germany necessarily, but I had to get a visa so I can start working right away. But to get legal status in Germany as an American who also has a technical degree, it makes a big difference as opposed to if you just have a humanities degree. So yeah, I'm sure that definitely has helped
Yeah.
you some. So kind of moving away from the visa talk, what do you miss most about India? I know you have an Indian community here, and
Right.
I mean, obviously there's some Indian restaurants, and I know that at UC they have an Indian Students Association. I've gone to Diwali there and gone to a couple different festivals, and it's a lot of fun. But what do you miss most about India?
Okay, I think my family first, definitely. And just like, things I could do there more differently than I can here. Like, I definitely did not have to do a lot of work on my own.
Right.
Like, I never had to worry about what I'm going to eat for, dinner or any other meal.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something I miss, like, just the comfort, of being there. But I love it here. Like, I've just been much more independent here for sure. Food, not really. I'm not a big fan of Indian food. I know it sounds weird. It just
I didn't realize that.
Oh, you
Yeah.
didn't know that?
No.
She can't eat spicy food.
Yeah, I can.
What?
Yeah, I know. I get that a lot. They're like, "What?" They're like, "No, bro, you're a fake Indian." I'm like,
Well, that's what you get for growing up in Nepal, right? For the first portion of your. for the first few
honestly,
years.
like, it happened to me more after I came here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there was a long period of time that I didn't consume any Indian food, like over a year or so. And somehow my stomach, like, just lost the tolerance for it.
Yeah.
And now, like, when I eat it, like, I like it. Obviously, like, it's a comfort food for me.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people. But at the same time, like, it just makes me sick. I feel like it's the, maybe it's like I don't know what it is. It's the spices or the cream or whatever. But I just cannot, like, even like when I go back home now, my food has to be much more like boiled and less spicy and, just like very different than what I used
You
to
get
be
the
able
American
to.
menu. You've been Americanized.
Americanized Indian food.
Yeah, but I would definitely say, like, I just eat Indian food a couple times during a semester or a year, and whenever it is, it has to be like absolute negative spice level.
Negative. Do you actually say that? Like you call in and you're like, can I get spice level -5?
Pretty much just stick a thing of yogurt on pasta.
I talk to them in Hindi and I tell them, I'm like, please, like, make it as less spicy as possible. Don't even put spices in there. And he's like, it's gonna be super bland. I'm like, I'm okay. I don't want any spices. Like, it just makes me a little bit sick. And I also like feel like it just like destroys the taste of the food, like too much spices. But people have different
I love
opinions.
spicy food,
So,
I'll take the spices that you don't want.
But that's it. That's so you don't miss the Indian food. You miss your family and the convenience about India, and that's it.
I would say, yeah, that's it. I feel everything else, I love it here. It's so much freedom here. I can do things on my own. I can travel. I can be independent. I can, make plans with friends and do stuff on my own. And like, it's just definitely a good life here. Like, there's not a ton of things that I miss.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I know being an immigrant, being so far away from home can be a very hard thing. So I'm glad to hear that. Besides missing your family, which is completely normal.
Yeah. See, technically, I'm not an immigrant.
Sorry, not an immigrant.
A student.
A foreigner living in the United States.
Just saying clear on the legal things. But
that's true. You're not an immigrant.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, definitely there's. I know so many people who are so homesick and who just wanna, just like wanna go home every chance they get, because that's how they like wanna spend their time back home. I know so many of my friends who didn't even come back this semester because classes were online, so rather just stay home and do it than come from here and do it. I'm not that person. Like, I think I have made like fantastic friends here. I've met some fantastic people here, and I always encourage others to do that. Like, I think if you step out of your comfort zone and like step out of that box and actually meet people, like, you would feel like family here. Like, you would feel comfortable here. It's just about like them like developing that comfort. Like, I don't feel like a foreigner as per se anymore.
So you kind of already started to get into this topic, but we were wondering, what advice would you give to a younger Sheffi right before she came to the U.S. or when she first arrived?
Wow. I feel like just do everything, like explore everything. Don't be hesitant in asking. I feel like if you don't ask, like, the answer is always going to be no.
Yeah.
You would never know. So
Such a wise statement.
It's so true.
So just, better an oops than a what if. So I just feel like I was definitely like that in the beginning. I used to be very scared of like asking questions or trying to understand, like, what people I would just like think that people would judge me. And one thing I've learned is Americans don't judge. They don't. They like literally.
I agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
That's so
I think
interesting.
many Americans don't agree with that, but
Yeah,
I said that
'cause
in
I
my
wouldn't have
video
agreed with it.
that like I think Germans judge so much more than Americans do, and that's also why I love the culture here, because I feel like I can do whatever I want, and even if people like talk somewhere, like I'm not being confronted with it as I would be in Germany, and so I don't care, like even if they would talk. But so that makes me feel a lot more free with what I can explore in all of my options.
Exactly.
That's
I feel
so
like even
interesting.
growing in India, like, it's just so much judgment from the community around you, and people care so much about what others think, and people care so much about, like, you got to do some things according to the society and stuff like that. It's not here. Like, I don't think it's like that here. Like,
I'm sure it has a lot to do with the thing that we talked about earlier, like individual culture versus
Yeah.
collective culture.
Yes, exactly. And then I think that was one of the biggest things I would tell myself, was that you can be more open and more free. Because I definitely feel like my freshman year, I did my things on my part, like whatever I could, but I could have done so much more if I was a little bit more open to things and not scared. And I got over my fear or like, my whatever, like my comfort zone very quickly, and a lot of students don't do that.
Yeah.
So I just hope that, anybody who listens to this, and if you're an international student here, I think that's a big deal, is like just like getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like just like staying with the Indian community or with my Indian friends, I would have not gained so much experience and so many memories that I did in the past 4 years. Like, I love all my Indian friends here.
Yeah.
They've been my backbone, but at the same time, everybody else I've met has taught me so much, like meeting you, Philly, or like meeting you, Josh, or like so many other people I met, like they
You're
just
welcome.
taught me so much. Right. So I feel like that was definitely something that I could have done like much more since the beginning than like towards like
How old were you when you came here?
19.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think that's so interesting because that's what Faye and I have both talked about in previous episodes as well, is be open to everything at first. Don't
And say yes to everything.
exactly. I
The
really
yes
liked
theory,
what
yeah.
I liked what you said. It's better for it to have been an oops than a what if.
Right.
So that's just what we would encourage our listeners to with as well, is say yes to all of the
Yeah.
opportunities you get.
And Sheffi, you even like you did the thing where you got involved in like college organizations a lot too, which I think was like a big thing, right?
Absolutely. I feel like college campus involvement gave me so many opportunities and friends and stuff. I got involved in all these organizations. I ran in a student body election, like,
That's so
things
cool.
like that, which like people like did not expect of me as an international student, or like wasn't expected of me because nobody else was doing it. So
Right.
I feel like there was always a change that has to come. Like, I feel like even though in a very small scale, but like after I started getting involved, I saw like so many international students started
Yeah.
coming up and
Way to
getting
be a
involved.
pioneer.
Well, I like to tell myself that.
It's true though. It's
But
true.
I'm definitely very like I feel just like good about myself that I could do something that could help students out there, because it's so difficult. It's so difficult. I'll never forget that first day I came here, and I with 3 bags,
So
all
scary.
heavy bags, didn't know a single thing about here, and you're here and you just my taxi from the airport even dropped me on the wrong side of UPA. That I was living in UPA South, and it dropped me in UPA North. And I don't know
Which is
how
a
do you
dorm.
like
Yeah.
actually take like 3 bags with you?
Yeah, it's impossible pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, and then you have to. That's like your first experience, then with like you're by yourself, and then you have to ask a
Right.
stranger for help, and like.
It was so scary and then there was like you don't know how to like how things work around here. Like where do people get food? Like what
Yeah.
are you guys like even like basic things like where do you
Yeah.
get groceries? Like how do like dollars and cents work? Like we've talked about this. Like
Yeah, what's a
I
quarter?
didn't-
What's a nickel? What's a dime?
Yeah, like basic things like that. Like I feel like there's so much intimidation in the beginning. It's very easy to get scared by that and stay in your dorm. And I know so many people who are doing that, who like just staying in their dorms for all 5 years and like never getting out. And I feel like that's not like making full use of your experience.
I can relate though, like it is pretty scary,
Oh, it's
even
very
as a
scary.
German who like obviously the differences aren't as big as compared to India, but like all these little things are scary, and in the beginning it was a big challenge for me too. And just like you're like we kind of talked about this, but like adulting 2.0, but like
Yeah.
you're at the restaurant and you don't even know how to order, or
Yeah.
like you don't even know what certain foods are, because that's not common in Germany or something like that.
And
so,
I can say that that's the same thing for me as well when I was in Germany. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of being in a foreign culture in a foreign country and
Yeah.
trying to figure everything out. So
Yeah.
it's a huge growing experience. And I think if you
For sure.
stick through it, it's so rewarding.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, don't be
but-
afraid of it, because it's
Yeah.
normal, and all of us have gone through
Well,
it.
and that's one thing I was actually going to mention. I didn't want to interrupt you earlier, Sheffi, though, but you were talking about having your Indian community here. And I think it really is important for people who are in a foreign country to try to find a community of people from your home country as well. I think, like you said, the Indian community and your Indian friends have been your backbone, but you've also had such an amazing experience with Americans. And I think it just is good to have a little bit of comfort, or like a touchstone where you can always be like, okay, I'm still comfortable. I know people that have similar experiences as I do, and just to have that basis, but then use that base to be able to go out and make new
Yeah,
experiences.
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Like having the best of both worlds, kind of. That's what I did too. Like
Yeah.
I was pretty much surrounded by Americans in the very beginning, but then I also met like you and my
Yeah.
other German-speaking friends, and it was great to have the best of both worlds. And I
Yeah.
think even if you're like in a country where you don't have a community of people who are from your country, you can always connect with other expats, with other international students who still, even if they're not from the same country,
Are
they
going
might
through
still
similar
have
experiences.
exactly.
Yeah, I feel like one of the biggest like learning lessons that I've taken, like as you said, like something I would tell my freshman self was to like submerge myself more into the American culture and the American talks, because in the beginning I feel like the biggest reason international students stay out of the American community is because they cannot understand most of the things that they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like big one being like football. Like I mean, I still don't understand the sport, but I understand it enough to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like I can be a part of a conversation where people are talking about it.
Yeah.
So if just like from our part, like just doing that little bits of things where like we learn about the things that people like to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot be talking about things like back home in India, like there were some things that we used to talk about and have conversations over it for longest times, But here, if you bring that up, a lot of people would not be interested.
Like what?
Like World War II maybe. So like we are very like history oriented people, and like me and my dad used to have conversations on World War for hours. And I don't think over here, like if I bring up a conversation, a lot of people would be interested in talking for a long time.
It'd be a pretty short conversation.
Exactly. Like, just like a lot of things that I don't think really make a good conversation point for Americans. Like you just need to learn those. Like you need to learn like what they like
what
to
are
talk
the small
about.
topics?
Like if I bring up like keeping up with the Kardashians, I can talk about that with like people here, or Gossip Girl, like shows like that, like American shows, or like
or sports.
American sports, exactly, or like fast food restaurants, like you can talk about like Cane's, or like
Raising Cane's for everyone is a chicken joint.
And you can talk about that now because you've made those experiences. So that's also why it's important for you to get out there as an international student, because if you don't even start to make the same experiences as those Americans, you can never get in touch with them and get involved and become friends with them. Because then like you'll never have stuff to connect
exactly
over.
And I hope like, and another thing, like obviously like we talk about like how international students can do it better, but I feel like even Americans can like have a little bit of more empathy, or like towards the international students, knowing that they're coming from a place where they do not know a lot of stuff.
And that's what I was going to say is I think as an international, it's important for you to find those natives to that country who are going to be willing to help you through that process. And this is what we're talking about. If you don't understand, let me kind of fill you in. And I think having those few people that that you can ask questions to, and they'll explain it to you. I think that's something that's really important.
Yes. Yeah, I have to say, like, I was very lucky with that in the beginning, so I didn't even think about that as like an active process. But I was surrounded with 4 American roommates who were all taking care of me so well. Like, I could ask them anything. Then I had a boyfriend at the time who was American. Then I had you guys, like the German Americans, who I could ask all these like German related questions. So I think I was like very fortunate with that.
That for
and that's
you
why
was organic.
Yeah, my transition was very easy because of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, because like all these things like come up in conversations, and like you learn about them like slowly. And I feel like you just, as you said, you just need to find the right people, because a lot of people do not want to go through that effort. Like do not want to go through like teaching you someone new. Like they're just very comfortable in their own group and own culture. And like they don't want to like really step outside their zone. But I think once you are comfortable and once you know things, like I feel like right now I'm pretty comfortable with knowing everything around here. So then you can like go ahead and make friends with those people who weren't really ready in the beginning. And it's okay.
Move on to phase 2.
Yeah, you can like, I think
of infiltration into the American culture.
Exactly. Like I don't think like every person is meant for phase 1. No, and it's okay, because it's not their responsibility to like teach you everything.
That's true.
Like I mean, it's their choice, but at the same time, like you can always be friends with them later. And I feel like so many people have come into my life in the past 1 or 2 years who would have never come into my life in my first or second year.
Right.
There was no way, because, we just did not like connect on things. And now like we have things to talk about, or like, things we can relate to. So it's much more different.
Well, Sheffi, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot. And
I feel like we could even do a part 2. I think we said the same thing about the conversation with Niklas, but I think there's just so much there, because you have all these like different experiences that we can relate to, but then also like the whole college experience and everything. So it was really, really interesting.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This was definitely a lot more fun. It's good
Than
to be
that you're expecting.
Dum, dum, dum. Yeah, well, thank you guys for listening too, and for watching on YouTube. You can, of course, subscribe on our YouTube channel, Understanding Train Station. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts,
all those
Google
platforms.
Podcasts, I think Amazon Music. We should be on iHeart at some point. I'm not sure if we're on there yet.
I think we are on there now.
Cool.
Last time I checked the email, I think.
Yeah, subscribe to us on all of these platforms.
We also have an email. Sorry.
Leave a review is what I was going to say.
And we also have an email address if you want to reach out to us with any topic ideas. It's understandingtrainstation@gmail.com.
Then you can follow us on Instagram. Also message us there at Understanding Train Station. Patreon.
Leave us comments on YouTube.
Patreon, if you want to support us a little bit more, is also Understanding Train Station. We have a Buy Me a Coffee page if you want to like buy us a little treat, a little coffee or a beer.
And thank you to all of our supporters who either support us on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and just to the listeners in general. We really have been blown away by the support that we've gotten so far. So.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And if you're a patron, or if you consider becoming a patron, every week after we finish the official recording, we're recording an extra snippet just for the patrons. And we reply to their requests and their questions. So if you want to enjoy that too, you can support us on Patreon.
Well, thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep,
and
every Thursday.
From us, it's Servus.
Tschüss. And what do you say? How do you say bye in Hindi?
Bye.
Bye.